Hey, what's up everyone? Eric Rossi, the guy with the eye here, and I'm here with the most requested review to do in the past few months. It's still pretty much a new camera, but I have right here the Nikon D500, and I want to give a huge thanks to BHPHoto and Video for sending this out and sponsoring this episode. They didn't pay for the episode, but they allowed me to give me full access to a brand new Nikon D500, so that way I could do the unboxing and to really get hands-on with this thing for a good amount of time, in which I really did. So in this review, you're going to get a breakdown of how this is built, my thoughts on that, who this is exactly for, the photo quality in its own little thing, and video quality in all in itself as well. So we're going to break this bad boy down. But how I did a lot of my other reviews, I normally did them kind of like a vlog style. The autofocus in this, which I'll cover in the video section, isn't the best for that. So this really isn't a vlog camera. It's a little bit more professional. I'm going to have a couple vlog clips right here. It's only like 4, just to show you my reaction in real time when I was actually out in the streets in Philadelphia using this. So I'm going to roll those right now. Hey, what's up everyone? Eric Rossi here, and I'm just really kind of going through Philadelphia now. I do have the Nikon D500 right here, and I've just been doing reviews. I guess I'm not going to make this too vloggy. I guess I'm going to be in the studio a little bit with just how the day is going and how things are working out. But first thoughts with everything, I've probably had this for about like 2 or 3 hours now. We're going with friends. We're at the DNC in Philly. And you want to say hi, Steve? Say hi, Bob. Yeah. Okay, he's done. My first thoughts overall, it's a very easy camera to use. The only thing I'm noticing right away is that the crop factor, I'm using a Nikon 24-70, is definitely limiting what I can do, especially video and photography wise. And I know that from a photography point of view, like I know about the crop factor, but it's just what I have right now, and I'm reviewing this for what I do. Now you're gonna see wedding stuff that I tested this out, which my friend Steve, who shot with me, didn't even know about. But I'm just gonna kind of give you my thoughts and show you things that I'm doing along the way as I'm going through Philly. So you're gonna see low light examples in like the Reading Terminal, like right over here. So we're just seeing some historical stuff, and I felt that this is a real world thing. This is how I would use to shoot it, some street stuff as well. And I think that we're just gonna keep going with it. So right now I'm literally in the middle of the street in City Hall, but they have got like little curbs and stuff. And I'm doing long exposures with the D500. So what I'm doing right now is kind of capturing this and seeing what this will look like. So you'll see some of these as well. I did a couple in New York too from a little bit ago. We'll see how it goes. But so I must say, with the first impressions of the D500, it's very sharp, it's very crisp and clean. Like I was mentioning, the video's a bit cropped, so I might not have a lot of video just because it's really difficult to shoot with the lens selections that I have. But it's a very fast camera, the screen's very responsive. Street photography wise so far, it works out very well, it's very fast. I pretty much just leave the screen like this and kind of hold it and look down and shoot that way, and I'm on continuous focus. Otherwise, I just pretty much leave it on continuous as I'm doing anything street photography, and then I go from there. I did, as I said, I went to test out the low ISO range, and I'm not that impressed so far, but that's just off the camera. So when I get back into the studio, you're gonna everything, and I'll fully see everything and edit, but it doesn't look that good, and that was one of the major claims of this camera. It'd go to like 51,200, but for the most part, it's pretty much like the D750, but a little bit lighter and a little bit more of an interesting grip. So an interesting thing to note about the D500 touchscreen is that it isn't really fully a touchscreen. It's more or less just for simple things. It's really to touch the focus, and you can use the shutter that way, or you can zoom in on a photo. So that's one of the cool things about that. I'm just really in the shade because it's really hot right now. But that's really it. You can't like change menu settings or anything with it, but it is pretty neat. So keep in mind, I might glance down because I've got a lot of notes about this camera because I want to hit everything that I can for you. And I'm not going to break this down like tech by tech spec. So this is just going to be a full just reaction, something honest and true. One of the big things I noticed about this camera is the fact that you do have an XQD card and an SD card. So if you have an SD card and you're looking to buy this, once again, this is $2,000. So you're debating if you're buying this or the D750. This is a crop sensor camera of the Nikon D500, and it shoots extremely fast and it's very accurate. But you want to be anything fast, you know, if you're going through, you know, your 10 frames per second, if you're having some fun with that and you're just rifling through these, you're gonna wanna have an XQD card because the buffer can fill up rather quickly. And I have top of the line SD cards between SanDisk and Lexar, and they couldn't necessarily keep up. And I didn't own an XQD card, so this is gonna be one of the most important things going forward. And for video, if you wanna use this bad boy for 4K, please use an XQD card or your recording will be interrupted when you're using an SD card. One of the biggest things not a lot of people are talking about, but if you're buying this camera, you should pretty much buy the XQD card anyway, as it's necessarily for speed. If you're looking right here, right under the mirror, there's a 20.9 megapixel camera, and it's got one of the fastest, I think the XSpeed 5 imaging processor. And when I say that this is well built, it is professionally built. And you don't see a lot of these for crop sensor cameras, but this Nikon D500 is an extremely professional camera in just the way it's laid out and the build quality. The other interesting thing to note is a circular eyepiece. You normally only see this on like maybe the Nikon D700 and some of the full frame bodies, but it has this as well. But it has 100% viewfinder coverage. Mind you, the sensor is once again a crop sensor, so you have to multiply your lens by 1.5 times to get a more accurate focal length of what you have. But overall, once again, the build quality is extremely solid. I say it lies somewhere in between the ergonomics of the Nikon D750 wise, because you can have a really phenomenal grip with this. Professional build of like the Nikon D800 or D810, maybe the D700 as well. It's just well built. Everything is what you need. The one thing you have to notice is that this does not have a built-in flash, does not have a pop-up flash. So if you want to use something kind of as a trigger or something like that, it has to be externally. You can't use it natively with this. I don't mind something like this, but I know that that could be a big factor for some and a little factor for others. So keep that in mind, no pop-up flash. Really, other big thing to note, there's a couple, is that they've mapped the ISO button more to the top of the camera in regards to the build quality and design of this thing. So it's a little bit more easily accessible without having to remap buttons. It just makes more sense. And I found myself still weird trying to use it where I'm normally used to on the back. But having the ISO button up top is a genius, and the record button's in a great place. The button layout and some of the function buttons are in a phenomenal place for this as well. The other cool thing is the little dial right here. This is something new that Nikon put onto the Nikon D500, and it works rather well for moving around your focus points. I wish it was a little bit faster though. It is a little bit slow, but obviously you have to mention the 3.2-inch articulating screen. You can look at it going down, and you can look at it going up. It's not fully articulated or anything, so keep that in mind. But this is actually a touchscreen. And I say touchscreen in quotes because it's not fully a touchscreen. There was a little bit of a flaw with that. I mean, you can essentially use it to tap the focus. So wherever you have the focus, you can tap, it'll focus. You can touch the shutter, where wherever you touch, it'll focus, and then release the shutter by itself. And you can use it kind of like a smartphone when you're going through pictures and everything like that. The really awesome part that I had was when you're zooming into a picture, instead of having to like hit the plus button to zoom in, you could just pinch in and pinch out to see if you're in focus or not. So I really enjoyed that. But then I felt myself going to the menu. I'm like, oh crud, you can't use it in the menu to scroll around. So I think that's a little bit of the drawback that they had with something like this. But the build quality and everything, overall, I'm used to something like this. This is a little bit better. And I actually wish the D750, which I have, was more built like this, because this just feels perfect for everything that I need build quality wise. I'm going to tackle the stills side of this down as more. I'm going to mention what kind of battery it has, because I think that's important for a lot of the market as well. This uses the Nikon ENEL15, which if you pretty much had a Nikon D600, 610, 750, 800, 810, uses the exact same battery. So if you already have one of those as like your main driver camera, this will pretty much work as, the same as well. You can interchange batteries, and it's perfect for that. And I bring this up because you want a reliable battery, and those last such a long time. And I think that this camera, because of what it is, once again, it's a crop sensor camera, is very, very strong for sports. It gives you that extra reach and wildlife photography. I think that's one of the biggest things, because 10 frames per second, it's extremely fast. You can get up to 200 raw photos on the buffer before it really starts to fill up. So essentially you can kind of keep going all day and you don't have to worry about it. But even the megapixel count, almost 21 megapixels, is strong for something like this, even though for 2016, 21 is still plenty enough. You don't really need 30 or 40. So this is a good range for something like that. You get the wildlife feel, you get that extra crop, you get everything exactly what you need. But this is also not a bad thing for events and weddings. Now, low light photography, it natively goes from 100 to I think 51,200 ISO. And I was in a real world light situation, low light situation, and I was at like 3,000 or 4,000 ISO. I'll put up the photo. The goofy friend I took of a photo I took of my friend Bob. And it just didn't look good. But it was a realistic situation, so I wasn't necessarily a fan of the low light. I even had this at a wedding that my friend Steve, who I was shooting with, didn't know I tested that as well. So you're gonna see a photo or two from that. With flash and everything at weddings, if you can use that, this works great. And I use 2.8 lenses too, so you can't use that as a thing. The low light is kind of a little overhyped with this thing, But in the overall, if you need to push something to get something, especially if you're using flash photography, this will work out tenfold for something like that. But because of what this is for, is this a Nikon D300, D300S upgrade? It absolutely is, but at a bit of more of a price tag, but you get a lot more features built into something like this. The other cool part is that this does have built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth and everything, but this does have that Snapbridge technology. So in regards to your photos and everything like that, you can essentially set it up kind of like an ad hoc system to your smartphone device. So that way, when you take a photo here, it will go to your smartphone. That way you can edit it and post it natively and live, and you don't have to have a computer for that process. The image quality is second to none, pretty much 10 out of 10. The autofocusing for photography, I mean, it still depends on your lenses as well. But this camera is snappy. It's very, very fast. It's top of the line. That's why you're paying big bucks for this thing, because you're paying for quality and the features that it can provide. Now, shooting with it, the crop sensor, because I'm really starting to do a lot more street stuff, and even in some of my weddings, the crop sensor is limiting for my taste and what I want to do. Is how I shoot the way you are? No. Is the crop sensor a flaw in this camera? No, it's just targeted to someone else in that market. But that doesn't take away from the image quality of this, because like, as I said, this is pretty much a Nikon D5, its baby brother, with pretty much a lot of the guts and everything built in. So you're getting a very good package for something like that. And there's nothing really left short on this camera and everything of what it is. The image quality is sharp. The auto white balance that you use, and that's how I shoot for both photo and video, was actually spot on with a lot of the situations, so it can render out colors very well. So any of the photos you see here were raw. They were taken with this, and you'll just see them as they come up on the screen. Streetwise and event-wise, you can be discreet because this does have the tilt screen that folds out that I like to essentially, post up around my body, post around my chest or my, my stomach level, and I can look down and be a little bit more discreet when I'm focusing. But let me tell you, the autofocus continuous, like I said, is extremely fast. It's reliable. The stills in this thing are really, really good. We're gonna look at the video of this guy now, and I made a montage clip of everything, so I'm gonna have a separate link to that below and maybe on screen, so check that out. And it pretty much came out at the same time as you're watching this video, but it's just a quick 1-minute video just showcasing some of the things around New York I took of the video. It's all raw and unedited, so you can see exactly how it is straight out of the camera. Now, the video on this thing in 1080p, absolutely phenomenal. The one thing I have to mention again is that if you're using 4K video, you need to have an XQD card or it will not work properly. Like I was mentioning, I was using my SD card. I shot maybe 2 or 3 seconds of 4K video, and I have, once again, the fastest in the line that can keep up with this camera, or so I thought. And the recording kept getting interested because it was overdoing the card and it couldn't write fast enough. So once again, get an XQD card, as this is an XQD card and an SQD card slots. 4K video looked great. In that montage video, you see a lot of it scaled down at 1080p because I couldn't do a lot of 4K. I was able to borrow like a random stranger's, because he actually had a D500 as well. I was able to use that for like 10 or 15 minutes. We were talking, and this didn't overheat or anything like that. So I know there were some rumors on that, but the Nikon D500 does not overheat. So whoever heard of that, that's absolutely not true. But the image quality is phenomenal. What you get from this, you get 4K at 24 and 30 frames per second, but also keep in mind, you get like this uber 2x crop as well. So you're already on a crop sensor that's already, 1.5 times crop if you use the full frame, but then you're also cropped in more to get the 4K video because it uses more of the center of the sensor, which wasn't a thing, but keep that in mind. You're gonna need a lot more space to get exactly what you need. But going on, it has your typical 720p at 60 frames per second, which I wish they would have done more, because at 1080p, you get your 24, 30, 50, blah, 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 and your 60 frames per second, which you saw in that video. There was cars driving around, people skateboarding, and a bee flying around that I slowed down to 60 frames per second with this. So 1080p is very strong in this camera. Like as I said, if you're gonna have 720p and you're already at 60p at 1080, I wish you would have had at least 120 at 720p, even though it's a smaller HD. For the video, a lot of questions are gonna come down to this touchscreen as well and how it works. So you can be live recording, in live view, and you can actually touch to move your focus during there, so that way you can move focus if you want to try and do a kind of an autofocusing rack shift. But the autofocusing, as I said, it isn't good for this camera because it hunts. It's not very smooth. It's not like a dual pixel thing like a Canon 70D or 80D, 70D Mark II, all that kind of stuff. It's not as reliable for something like that. So you will see the jolt, you will see the hunt for it trying to catch focus, but you can gauge exposure, you can move focus live in video. And just to answer this question as well, you can change your aperture in live view, which has become a recent success for Nikon because they were so far behind on that in a lot of their cameras. But the autofocusing, once again, isn't top notch for video, but if you're doing serious video anyway, I could see this as a serious B or C camera for someone because of what it is, but you're gonna manually pull focus and rack focus if you need to do something like that for your video. Just to really kind of wrap it out as well, on the pretty much the same tab on here as well, it's more of the features. You do have a mic jack, so that way you can use an external mic, and you do have a headphone jack, which a lot of camera manufacturers are leaving out by accident, I hope by accident, so you can monitor your audio live if that's the way you like to do this, so that way you can hear it in live time, how it sounds, everything like that with a good pair of headphones. So that pretty much wraps up a lot about how the video and photos work of this. I just have a couple quick frequently asked questions that I want to run through that I saw and gathered from a lot of places, and some that I've, got myself. How is the fine-tune focusing? That fine-tune focusing is a feature within the Nikon D500 that works very, very well. It only takes like 1 or 2 minutes to do instead of having to get all these charts and things and everything. If you want a separate video on that, let me know down in the comments below. But the fine-tune focusing works. You can do it per lens and save profiles and everything like that. And it's extremely powerful for something like that. The other thing, can you use both DX, crop, and full frame lenses on this? And yes, you can. On any crop sensor camera, you can use full frame lenses, but because this is a crop sensor camera, it's not a full frame camera, you can use crop sensor lenses, which is actually pretty cool because you can get like the Nikon 17-55, which I think is one of their best ever crop sensor, lenses ever made. It will work perfectly 100% on that and pretty much be the equivalent to like the Nikon 24-70. Now the body, is it aluminum? What's it made out of, everything like that? It's magnesium alloy, and it's dust and weather sealed, so you get a little bit more protection from that. One of the things out there is, can you use non-Nikon batteries on this? Now, I saw a lot of people were saying, no, you can't. It's just a design that Nikon put in, so that way you have to buy their system. But I actually did. I have a Wasabi battery, not like I'm going to eat it. I have a Wasabi battery that I use in this thing without issue, so that's that as well. And does this have in-body image stabilization? It does not. Now, pretty much nothing on the line does for Nikon with in-body stabilization. So just keep that in mind. If you need VR, if anything like that, you will have to, have that within your lenses, which, is fine for most of the time. Once again, thank you so much for sticking around for this whole video, and I hope I answered everything in depth as I can. I showed you real world examples and everything like that. And I just hope, you got exactly what you needed from this. And if I can hopefully help you make your decision on buying the Nikon D500 or not, or if not, just fill you in on this. One of the things I forgot is that the autofocusing, it's got like 180 points. It covers most of the screen, 99 cross type, all that kind of stuff. But once again, I wanted to thank BHPHoto once again for setting this out for this video. I've got links to everything that I talked about, the Nikon D500, down in the link below. If you're looking about picking this up or learn more about this, please check the link that can also help out the channel down below in the description to B&H. Once again, B&H, thanks for sponsoring this episode. But overall, is this the camera for me? I can see myself buying this, but for a lot of my street stuff and everything like that, I think I'll stick to full frame and some of my smaller stuff. The future that this provides, especially for the tech-wise with the autofocusing and with the screen and some of the other little new jog dials and everything like that, would be amazing in their next full frame camera, whatever that would be. So once again, Nikon D500, you got your sports, you got your wildlife, you can do some street, a little bit, you're a little limited, but you can do your weddings, your events with flash and everything, and you've got no problem whatsoever. So is this worth $2,000? Absolutely. It's worth $2,000 to me if I really wanted something like this, and to someone else who's looking to upgrade to something like this as well.